Hello, everyone. It's Frank McGuire.
And Christina Dudamas.
And Sabamir.
And Jeff Mack.
And this is another episode of Meanwhile, back on the podcast. On today's show, we're sitting down to recap the second half of the second season of The Mandalorian.
Meanwhile, back on the podcast, four colossal nerds named Saba, Chris, Christina, and Frank have set out to take on a great darkness that has enveloped the world of fandom with their powers of common sense and the strength to take on even the most butthurt Twitter mobs and insufferable comment section trolls. They fight for truth, objectivity, and nuance in the conversation and debate over fictional made-up shit.
So like we said at the top, we're sitting down today to talk about the second half of the second season of The Mandalorian. But before we get into that, maybe you're new to the show. Maybe this is the first time you're sitting down to listen to us. So let me tell you a little about who we are and what we're all about. Meanwhile is a fandom culture, speculative fiction loving collective. And each week we will share our brand of raw, hard-hitting commentary, news, film, and game reviews from all your most beloved corners of fandom. Now, our panel of hilarious and knowledgeable co-hosts, we rarely see eye to eye on these things, but to be honest, we designed it to be that way. However, no matter what we disagree on, each of us champion open, nuanced, and thoughtful conversation when discussing our favorite made-up shit. Meanwhile, is your one-stop shop for everything a growing fan person needs without any of those nasty preservatives. And if you like this episode and you don't want to miss the next one, be sure to subscribe and don't be selfish. Share us with your friends. Sharing is caring. So let's get into this, guys. Season 2 of the second half of season 2 of The Mandalorian, because obviously we already did a review on the first half. So this season kicks off at a pretty emotional high for Star Wars fans. I remember the day after this episode premiered, and my social media feed was just blowing up with talk of Ahsoka Tano. Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano, and nobody wanted to shut up about this. Everybody was talking about this. Everybody loved it. Everybody was so enamored and just so over the top, just freaking out about her performance. I can't say that I was, though. And I don't know how many people out there have listened to the episode that I did, which was basically me talking about one subject alone, and that was the appearance of Ahsoka Tano in The Mandalorian and what I took away from that. And I did it as Ahsoka's biggest fan, because to be honest with you, Ahsoka is my favorite Star Wars character of all time, without a doubt. And I had a lot to say. So if you haven't listened to that episode, maybe go back and listen to that if you get a chance, and then come back and join us for this one. But I never had a chance to sit down with you, Saba, or you, Christina, or you, Jeff, and kind of really get any feedback from you guys as to this debut of this iconic Star Wars character. So let's start with Saba. Saba, what did you think about the episode 5 of season 2?
The thing I really liked about that episode was her slow appearance. I liked how it was this foggy planet and how we saw the light, the white lightsaber. I thought they did really good there with the cinematography. And one of my favorite fight scenes is really in that episode near the end between her and Ahsoka Tano and Elsbeth. I know for you, Frank, that you were very invested in Ahsoka Tano. I know she's one of your favorite characters. And I know that you had some criticisms to her appearance, which, it's your total right to, of course. I actually, really enjoyed seeing the snapshot that we did see of her. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen all of Clone Wars. I've seen, a little bit of the first season, and then I've kind of jumped around and seen a little bit of later episodes just because of, walking in on my brother watching or something else. But I really do think that Rosario Dawson's portrayal of her was really good. And I was really happy that the fans got what they wanted to. So little do the fans really get what they actually want in terms of casting. And so this fan casting come to life. I really liked her character. She seemed like a mature version of that little girl that I saw. It felt like her. It felt like this is who she'd turn into, that you could still sense there's like that childlike cheekiness to her that she had, it's still kind of in there. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with that episode as a whole.
Okay. It's funny, all the things that you liked were basically the things that I really really rubbed me the wrong way, to be honest with you. But I'll get into that after we kind of go around the circle here and we get some more feedback. Christina, what were your thoughts on episode 5, The Jedi?
So this episode, I did find it to be a bit slow in terms of pacing. So maybe not the most interesting episode in season 2 for me, but I did like it better than some of the previous episodes. So I kind of found season 2 slow to start in total.
Okay.
And this was where it started to get a bit more interesting for me. Mm-hmm. I did like the character of the magistrate. I thought she was a pretty intimidating character to begin with. Her world is like that she's created on this planet's a little messed up, or her city. She's keeping like prisoners up at the front.
Well, she's taken power from one of those guys, right? Like she took over. Like that's the vibe that I got. But
yeah. And then it also feels like she's using them. Like
of course.
She's using these people to kind of like protect her city from Ahsoka, right?
Yeah, she's like a warlord.
I think she's killing them, like if Ahsoka tries to come near the city or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and Ahsoka is obviously like outcasted or something into the woods. She's just like wandering around the forest on this planet for some reason.
Well, she's come to the magistrate to get some very particular information, and we'll talk about that too, and how that fits into the Star Wars canon, because it doesn't. But we'll get into that. But yeah, sorry, Christina, continue.
Yeah, and then, so I don't know Ahsoka the way you do. So same thing, I've just watched a few episodes of the beginning of the Clone Wars, and my understanding is that she's a lot younger there. So I would expect her to act different as an adult than she did when she's a young adult.
Sure.
So to me, I didn't mind the portrayal of Ahsoka. I still like the character that we got. I would say it's probably hard to be that sassy and come across as not cartoony. So I do think that's kind of going to be a hard line that she has to kind of follow, like straddle to pull off this character.
So you guys did listen to the episode.
So I thought that she did it well and that it didn't come across as too corny. Because I feel like if you try too hard to go for the sassy, then it might come across as corny, or like the vibe could be weird and not match like the episode or the other characters.
Sure.
And I think because like Mando is so serious, it would be hard. So we did see that one episode where that one girl with the 2 horns or whatever, she was too sassy and it was weird.
The Twilight
in that episode in season 1, right?
Yeah, she was the
and she was like a bit too much and it didn't work. So I don't know. I feel like Ahsoka did a better job in terms of portraying her character in a good way.
Gotcha.
In contrast to the characters around her too.
Gotcha. Okay.
And yeah, so same thing. I didn't mind that she was a Jedi, like that didn't bother me, but same thing because I don't have an attachment to the character's original story.
Right.
But I do remember you were telling us that she's not supposed to be a Jedi and all that.
She's not supposed to be a Jedi. That's the see. Okay,
I mean, but she kind of copped out to that as well, because when she was asked to train Grogu, she said like, I can't be the one to do it. So.
But that's kind of annoying because she kind of acted like a Jedi anyway.
Exactly.
She acted like a Jedi, and the episode implies that she is the Jedi.
Exactly.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Let's hear Jeff. Okay, Jeff. Let's hear your.
But I do feel like it's implied. I do feel like they never say it outright.
They don't say it outright.
Okay.
It's total fan service. They don't say it outright.
Yeah. So I didn't mind the episode. I didn't like it. The episode really. I'm indifferent. But I definitely didn't like how the fact that she was all like Jedi-like and Zen-like when she supposedly renounced it all. So it kind of annoyed me. It didn't seem true to the character. Like, yeah, mature-wise and everything, but she still seemed very amongst the Jedi side.
She seemed indoctrinated.
Yeah.
She seemed still indoctrinated.
Yeah,
yes.
and it didn't make any sense to me. I felt that kind of fell off for me. I don't know. I did. Casting-wise, awesome casting, but the delivery, not so much for me.
So I guess this is something
But that would be story. That wouldn't be her fault, right? Like if she was told to act this way or say these things.
Yeah, but
no,
she's
obviously
also
Filoni wrote the
for sure.
script, yeah,
but she was also like the way she acted and portrayed it was very almost too Zen-like, almost like another Yoda, which was really weird to me.
Yeah.
So I guess this is probably the difference between people who've seen all of Clone Wars versus like those who haven't. I know that part of her story does involve her sort of becoming disenfranchised with the Jedi and so on. So I can definitely see your guys' point of view in terms of that not fulfilling that part of that aspect, because I can't be one to judge on that, especially when I like same boat as Christina when I haven't really consumed all of that media that she's been in beforehand. So.
Okay, so I'm just going to go.
I would say there's still potential for them to kind of like give us more about Ahsoka. Like, I feel like they haven't told us everything about her.
Well, they're going to
yet.
give us a TV show, so I think
Yeah.
you'll have a lot to judge there, Frank.
So I'll just stick to a couple of my main sticking points with the portrayal of Ahsoka. So one is the whole Jedi thing. She's not a Jedi. The way in which she departed from the Jedi is so, I would figure, is an emotionally traumatic thing for her. Because if you don't know the story, like, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but she's basically framed for a crime. The Jedi don't believe her, and she has to escape from custody and basically prove that she's not the person who did this crime. And she finds out that she's being that she was blackmailed, or that she was that there was another Jedi scheming behind the scenes to make it look like she did it. So after all this goes down, she basically leaves the Order because she felt abandoned. Like, she felt abandoned, and she felt like her values and her ideals no longer aligned with the Jedi anymore. And I think that's a pretty huge thing. And I almost felt like it was completely just cast to the side as they figured out how to bring Ahsoka back into The Mandalorian. There's not even a reference to her disenfranchisement with the Jedi. And that really, really bothered me. She was almost talking like she was still indoctrinated. She was still part of the Order. And to me, that was just a crime against the character. And I know Dave Filoni is the steward of this character. And I'm kind of mad at him, to be honest, because he kind of cheapens this character by doing that. You know, watching Ahsoka sacrifice her attachment to the Jedi in Clone Wars, and then not only that, but carrying it through into Rebels as well. Like, she's very clearly says a multitude of times she's not a Jedi. It was just disingenuous. It felt phony. It felt false. It didn't feel real. The other thing I would say about the Ahsoka character was she lacked that spunk that gave her the nickname Snips, right? And granted, yes, she's older, but I really didn't feel that attitude from her that she's known for.
So I don't know exactly where Dave Filoni was coming from when writing this character, but and this is again all speculation on my end, the Ahsoka we see now inside this series is about 20 plus years off from the one we probably last seen in Rebels, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it's about that.
A lot of shit has gone down in those 20 years. I don't really know what Ahsoka's been through, and I do understand Dave not giving Ahsoka too much, because here's the thing. A lot of people watching this show have seen Clone Wars, but there's definitely a ton of people who have not. And a lot of people might get into Clone Wars from watching that episode because they're like, oh, I like this character. I want to learn more. So I can see like him adding specific plot points from Clone Wars that might just really go over people's head and add more confusion, that maybe he would stay away from that. And because Ahsoka is getting her own series, they might have time to delve into these things. You know, I don't know really what her path was in those last 20 something years. I don't think most of us do much past what happened in Rebels. So that's all I can really say about that in terms of, you know, the explanations for that. But again, it's all just speculating on my end.
Sure.
And I think that's also definitely enough time to become a totally different person. Like, I'm not the same way I was when I was 15.
Yeah,
so we're basically comparing someone who's 35 to how they were when they were 15.
Sure, but going back to the Jedi is like basically going back to your old religion. And people just don't do that, right?
Some people do.
No, they don't. They really don't. You become disillusioned. You don't go back. Especially if
I disagree. I think there's some people that do go back when something bad happens.
I do know a lot of people who, like, in their younger years are not religious, and then when they got older, like, that's like all my uncles.
Like people who aren't religious in their 20s, some, you know, as life gets harder, bad things happen, they start to turn towards religion.
But that's not a fair.
Older.
But that's not a fair argument, because the Jedi were wiped out.
But I've seen it happen. I'm saying,
sure, but the Order doesn't exist anymore. The Order doesn't exist anymore, so there's nothing to bring her back into the fold.
Well, she's saying that there are other Jedis, and so that's another point though. Like she recognizes that she can't train Grogu, or she won't train Grogu, and she's saying he has to take him to another Jedi.
Sure,
that.
but her response should have been, "I can't train Grogu because I'm no longer a Jedi."
Well, we don't know why she won't. She never tells us.
No, she makes it
why,
very
right?
clear. She says that because he
Well, she says because he's too attached.
he's too attached, and he says that he has anger.
But then,
and,
why does if she can't do it for that reason, then why would another Jedi be able to do it if that was the reason? So that's why I feel like she didn't give us the full reason.
Well, it's against the character's nature to be dishonest about something like that too. So that's another mischaracterization. So, but Jeff,
Yeah, I
Jeff, you
felt
get
like
what
she
I'm
had
saying,
something
right?
up her sleeve when she told
I
him
do.
to keep looking. Like it felt like she was playing a trick on him or something, or like she kind of knew something that he didn't know. So I got that vibe.
I don't know. I felt like she just wasn't. She didn't want the responsibility, but I don't know. She was telling him to look for a different Jedi, which to me it feels like she still considered herself on part of the Jedi Order, which was weird.
yeah. So, okay, let me wrap this up by saying that I believe that this was a willful misrepresentation of the character purely for the sake of fan service, right? One of the best things I saw leading up to this episode was this fan art that somebody had done of Ahsoka as like with that Force priestess look, that kind of Gandalf look that she had at the end of Rebels. And she was meeting the Mandalorian and meeting Grogu in like a field, right? That's the way we should have met Ahsoka Tano, not blazing with lightsabers. That doesn't make any sense as to because of where we left her in Rebels. It just doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't carry through. The through line in Rebels wasn't carried into this series, and the only reason it wasn't carried into this series was for fan service. And it frustrates me that they would use this amazing character for fan service. And that's not the only time they used a character for fan service in the second part of second season, which we will talk about for sure. But anyways,
I don't think it's a fair statement to say it was for fan service, because
Why
they
not?
did give her own series. So I think they're just introducing the character in live action.
I could easily
so that
make
you
the
go
point
and
that the
watch
series is
other
for fan
series,
service.
right?
I could easily make the point that the series is for fan service.
I mean, that's like all of Star Wars is fan service. Like, let's be honest, in general.
I agree.
But yeah, I don't know. I understand that, you definitely weren't happy with the betrayal. I will say this wasn't my favorite episode of the second half. I think this is where it really started to pick up, though, the series. And I think the best is sort of yet to come in terms of episodes we have to talk about.
Well, we got to talk about Grogu too real quick, because
Yeah.
I don't want to go too fast here or too far without talking about Grogu. So we learn his name. We learn his name is Grogu, and we learn that during the Clone Wars, he was, carried out of the Jedi Temple to be protected. We don't know by who. We don't know who was involved. And he was apparently a part of the Padawan, the youngling class during the Clone Wars, which again creates a whole multitude of problems because, one, we don't know how he got out. Two, we don't know how he survived, because literally Anakin went in there and slaughtered every youngling he could.
But
he could
we
get
have a
his hands
whole
on.
video. We have a whole video game of a Padawan that escaped the the killings of that.
True,
Anakin
I
did.
agree with
So,
that. Yeah, no, I agree
So it's
with
not
that.
that
And I
out
think we're
there.
going to see. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And the same thing with Kanan Jarrus. Kanan survived too. So I think we're going to see more of these stories. But then again, Grogu doesn't strike me as, because he's so small and because he's so infantile, like in his physicality, it's hard to justify. It's just really hard to justify. But anyways, we know his name is Grogu. We know that he escaped the temple during the Clone Wars, and that puts his age at somewhere probably around 30, 50, I think, like around there, somewhere in between there, depending on, anyways. So that's the kind of the most interesting takeaway from this episode is that we got Grogu's name now, and we know that he was a Padawan or a youngling at some point. The other thing I want to point out about this episode was it was highly reliant on a lot of Kurosawa. Like that entire episode was Kurosawa. Like it was just samurai trope after samurai trope after samurai trope after samurai trope, which is okay. But like, you know, Saba said in the open at the early stage here that the cinematography was beautiful, and it was gorgeous. I can't take anything away from the cinematography of this episode, but this was really over the top Kurosawa. Did anybody else get that vibe?
Now that you say samurai vibe, yeah, I would say, yeah.
I mean, but that's what George Lucas was looking to when creating Star Wars as well.
Yeah,
so
Kurosawa was his big influence. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe Kill Bill minus the bloodiness.
Yeah, so I don't really like blame them for going that way. And it didn't, I don't know. I mean, with Star Wars, it didn't seem too over the top with me. It's definitely not. Can I tell you, there's so many shitty planets in the solar system. Let me tell you, like, where is a nice planet? Why can't everything just be like A-okay? You know what I mean? Like,
I think a lot of these planets are bad on purpose.
Yeah.
They're like kind of in between worlds. There's not a lot of government on these planets. There's not a lot of policing. It's like the Wild West on a lot of the planets that we're visiting.
I will say though that fight scene between is her name Elsbeth and
Ahsoka?
Ahsoka. I really like the sounds that the weapons made. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like the noises, like there was a weird quietness, and then the only sounds were sort of that. And I actually thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. The other thing I had a problem with was Ahsoka being disarmed by this magistrate. That was kind of I don't know. Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, but she was saying the magistrate is not who she appears to be, that she's ended worlds or something, right?
Yeah, but that's like as like a bureaucrat. I don't think that's as a warrior. I'm pretty sure it's as a bureaucrat.
I don't know. I got the impression that she was some kind of warrior.
No, she was a bureaucrat. 100%. Her like being a part of like the Empire's building fleets and stuff like that. So that's definitely a bureaucrat. That's definitely not a warrior. But I was kind of shocked that she was able to best Ahsoka to that. No, well she lost to Ahsoka, but to the point that she took the fight, I was like, I don't know about that. The other thing was, there was another big reveal. Oh, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Jeff, sorry man, you've been kind of quiet. Is there anything you want to kind of toss in here?
No. Keep going. I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the other big information drop in this is Thrawn. Now, again, I have an issue with this because the last time we saw Thrawn, he was on the nose of a Purrgil as it jumped into hyperspace with Ezra, and nobody knows where Ezra and Thrawn are supposed to be because they're Purrgil. They're like space whales.
Mm-hmm.
So
I thought they were going to bring Ezra into it when they mentioned Thrawn, to be honest.
Well, that's the idea. They're taking a shortcut, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, this is how I imagined season 2 of The Mandalorian. And when they said that Ahsoka was going to be in it, I was like, okay, cool. I thought that Mando and the child, or Grogu, would be searching for some connection to the Jedi, and they would be visiting planets, and they'd be exploring like artifacts and, you know, different Jedi sites and whatever. And what would happen is they would come across Sabine and Ahsoka as they were looking for Ezra. And I was like, that makes sense to me. That makes total sense to me. Not only does that open the door to start Ahsoka's story and Sabine's story, but it also opens the door to start Ezra's story. And I'm starting to be concerned about the shortcuts that the Star Wars creative staff is taking as far as getting to stories for these other characters. I'm not interested in seeing just Ezra pop up on screen. I want to know where the fuck he was, and I want to know how he got back. Same with Thrawn. Like, Thrawn's already been announced. Lars Mikkelsen has already been cast in the role, and he's the guy that did the voice work for Thrawn in Rebels. So I'm really getting bored of watching the Star Wars staff take these creative shortcuts just to deliver whatever the fans are asking for. It's lazy and it's going to undermine the franchise. And it's just making Star Wars look really, really lame. And what George Lucas has always said, for 10-year-old little boys. And it can be so much more. And it's really starting to frustrate me. I don't know.
I mean, I'm really on the opposite end here. I mean, there's been a 25-year time jump from what you're talking about to now. I'm not saying that, I haven't seen all the Rebels, so I'm not really one to talk. But in terms of it being for like 10-year-old little boys, I mean, if you look at sort of how well the season finale did in the last few episodes, I mean, even you mentioning Bill Burr's performance, I mean, it's quite the opposite of that. I mean, it can be for 10-year-old boys. It can be for 40-year-old like men or women or whatever. Like, I really do think it's still like all age capturing. I can see you having issues with certain plot points. And like I said, because I haven't seen Rebels, I can't really refute any of those. But I do know that, yeah, it's been quite some time. So there's a lot we don't know. So like, is Ezra still missing 25 years later?
Well, the problem is with that, like the problem in answering that question, Saba, is he was taken by space whales.
Mm-hmm.
So unless the space whales did a 180 and brought him back, which he has probably no control over, like that's the problem, is there's no logical explanation as to why Thrawn and Ezra would be back in and around the center region, or the inner regions of the galaxy, or even the outer regions of the galaxy, to be honest with you. Because basically the idea at the end of Rebels was that the Purrgil were going to take Thrawn and Ezra, because Ezra sacrificed himself to take Thrawn away. Like that's what the Purrgil were for, was to get rid of Thrawn. Because once Thrawn was out of the picture, they could retake Lothal. Like they could take over Lothal, and they could free Lothal from the Empire. So basically Ezra sacrificed himself and got the Purrgil to take him into space, both of them into space. So he sacrificed himself. And the Purrgil, they don't just fly, they jump into hyperspace. They're like an organic life form that can use the hyperspace lanes. So it's the same hyperspace as like the Millennium Falcon, like Star Wars ships, everything. And so that's the problem, is that there's no logical explanation as to why Ezra would be back or Thrawn would be back. And those are some really important gaps that need to be filled in. And honestly, the better story is Ahsoka and Sabine on a journey to find Ezra. That's a better story. And I don't see people investing in the better story. I see people taking shortcuts.
I mean, we don't even have her full story. She was just in that one episode. If they introduced all that in one episode, let me tell you, people would be confused out of their minds.
No,
if that
I'm not talking
all
about
kind of came
sure.
in.
But I'm not talking about introducing it in one episode. What I'm saying is, because of the nature of how Thrawn and Ezra disappeared, right? That's where the stopping point is in the conversation, because they're whales. They don't communicate. Like, you can't communicate with them.
For sure, yeah. I understand. Like, I understand the concept of that. I'm just saying that they might explore that then in her series. And I don't know if they will or not. I'm assuming from what we've heard just from the little tidbits of that episode that will be a part of it. And I don't know how much of it will sort of fit the framework that you're expecting or not. But I do think it would be premature to explore more than they already did in just that one episode with her, because I mean, it would be throwing in a lot of information for a character who's not even a main character in that series. I understand she's a really important character, but it's the Mandalorian. So
yeah, right. And think about how many episodes of Clone Wars there went on for so many seasons. Well, they had a long time to develop.
It didn't happen in and so for Ahsoka, yeah, Clone Wars. So we're talking 7 seasons in total, because she comes back.
So they had lots of seasons to develop these characters, right? So I think they're gonna have to like take some more time, and that's why at least Ahsoka gets her own series, and I think that's why there's so many other series that take place within this timeline. Is I think they're gonna fill out some of the backstories for some of these characters.
Have they said, is there a series before or after The Mandalorian?
Well, that's the thing. They haven't announced the timeline, and And that's part of the problem is they haven't announced the timeline for Ahsoka series.
Well, they're doing it on purpose, Frank. They want people like you to turn in to learn more about the character.
Well, but like, I don't see them doing a prequel series because that wouldn't, like, I don't know how that plays out.
So what I know about her
like,
series is that I'm pretty sure it's going to tie into the Mandalorian again. I think.
Well, that's
right. Wasn't that the news about it? So it would probably be in the same time frame. I would imagine.
That's the problem. So like, so if it's not a prequel series, we're not going to get like. I'm just trying to make the point that there are better stories available, right? If somebody wants to do the work, right? And there's better stories available, and nobody's doing the work. It's just, it's almost like, okay, you know what? We don't have to explain this. We don't have to explain this. We don't have to explain this. Let's just do it because the fans are gonna, choke it down. They're not gonna care, right? And things are starting to get a lot more like that in Star Wars, especially with the Mandalorian. I had a lot of problems with the season finale, and we can, once we get to that point, we can talk about it. But we got to move on. So in the next step, like it seems like every episode has some pretty big things that take place. So we want to obviously cover some of the major events. So Mando more or less takes Ahsoka's advice because Ahsoka tells him to take Grogu to Tython and to put Grogu on the Seeing Stone at the top of the temple in Tython. Now, Tython is a planet that goes back into Star Wars canon way back. Like they've been talking about Tython forever in comic books and throughout the series throughout comic books and video games. So it does have some precedence. It does have some provenance. So Mando takes Grogu to Tython. They land on Tython. And I really like the scene where he's like, oh, I can't really land down there and get as close. So we're gonna have to go the rest of the way with the windows down. Now I just thought that was a kind of a funny way to kind of summarize him grabbing Grogu and flying around with the jetpack. I thought that was pretty dope. So he flies down to the temple, puts Grogu on the stone. Nothing's really happening. Mando goes out, looks out over the horizon. He sees the ship coming into orbit or coming into the atmosphere. And it's we don't really know what it is yet, but he takes a closer look. It's Slave One. It's Boba Fett. Boba Fett has just landed on Tython and he's coming to find Mando. And when he finds Mando, he's like, you have my armor. And they have this conversation that's back and forth about the armor. And then the Empire the Empire lands and they drop a bunch of troops off. And then Boba Fett basically gets his hands on his armor. And now it's basically the Boba Fett episode. Like this was all Boba Fett, right, guys? Like this is basically watching Boba Fett just fucking turn stormtroopers inside.
Yeah, he went ham on that.
Yeah, this is pretty exciting. I did like the pacing of this episode, and I did like all the surprises.
Just and like, when did Boba Fett become like a combat master like that?
Yeah,
it's because he escaped that Sarlacc pit, and all of a sudden
he's like a kung fu master. It was really weird.
Well, I didn't really get the feeling of a kung fu master. I got the feeling of just somebody who could like just brutalize people. Like that's what I got, And he is a Mandalorian. He was a bounty hunter from the time he was like 14 years old. So he spent a lot of time bounty hunting, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's had a lot of fights. And if he's been able to survive this long, he's got some skills.
He's very sneaky, that's for sure.
Yes.
Very sneaky. Would you guys agree though? They really set the bar at a new level for brutality in Star Wars with this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they did. Because you don't usually see like blood and stuff too in Star Wars. Like that's not a thing.
Well, we really didn't get to see blood, but we got to see like people's helmets caved in.
Yeah.
And like helmets being smashed apart. And like, in your heart that this guy's dead for sure.
Well,
right.
I don't know, the way Anakin, when Anakin falls in the lava.
Yeah, that was pretty intense.
That is pretty nasty
that's not
moment in Star Wars.
that's not really a fair side by side comparison though.
Yeah, that was
Like,
pretty
I'm just
we
saying,
knew-
so this isn't our most violent aspect of Star Wars.
I will
Just
say my
remember seeing
nephew and niece.
Obi-Wan watching Anakin burn. That was pretty
Yeah.
dark.
I will say my nephew and niece can't watch it yet. They've watched like the prequels and they've watched episode 4, 5, and 6. But my sister-in-law and brother holding off on Mando just a little bit, I think, because some of the fight scenes could be scary for them. But yeah, no, for sure the fight scenes too. Also, Fennec was with him as well.
Yes, Fennec Shand.
And
Yes, I wanna
she's
talk
got
about
that
too.
stomach. The first thing I thought of was like, how does she digest? But I guess she's pretty much like cyborg.
I was like, yeah, you get shot in the belly, and then somebody like replaces your insides with like fucking cyborg parts. Like I was,
Yeah, that's,
I felt like she's like Vision. What if she gets gum stuck in there? That's a spoiler for something else, though.
but yeah, no, Fennec Shand, amazing, loving this character. Ming-Na Wen, just an amazing actress. She plays Melinda May in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's a martial arts like expert. I'd love to see her in some more martial arts movies. She was Chun-Li in the original Street Fighter movie. I don't
She's
know if you
also
guys
the
know.
original
Oh my
voice
gosh,
actress
no,
for
she
Mulan, the
wasn't.
Disney cartoon. Yeah.
Oh, was she?
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
I
Oh.
knew the Mulan. I didn't remember that was. I'm gonna Google that right now.
Yeah, yeah. She was Chun-Li in the original one. So, but yeah, no, and now Fennec Shand is in the service of Boba Fett for saving him, or for him saving her life, which I think is really cool because we don't really get to. I want to learn more about this honor system in the world of Star Wars. Like, where does it come from? Because you hear this a lot. You know, like Chewbacca gave his life to Han Solo in the Solo movie because he saved him, right? And this continues to be a recurring theme of people becoming indentured to other people for saving their life.
Is that not samurai though? Do you think that's very samurai? It feels like it is.
It feels very samurai, but it also feels very medieval too,
Yeah.
right?
No, for sure.
It feels kind of like both, but like I want a better explanation, whether it's religious or whether it's just like the way of the world. Like somebody
It's
saves
like
your life and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna be your fucking slave for the rest of my life now.
But
I feel like
it's like
that's
a thing
trope
that they
anyway.
did-
I think you see that a lot.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that was like, I read in like medieval times, or maybe not medieval, but like, people like that whole thing, like man of my word or whatever, like that holds a lot of weight in terms of like, maybe it's their pride or ego. It's like they can be killers, they can do whatever, but like, God forbid they don't pay back a debt, It's like that sort of feeling.
I'm just trying to think of all the other movies that I've heard something like a life for life in.
Yeah.
It happened in Mulan.
I think you've heard it in
so
westerns.
yeah, maybe it is like a samurai thing.
I think you've heard it in westerns, right? Probably.
Yeah, probably in westerns it's a thing. I think even in pirate movies it's a thing.
Yeah, it's the thing.
That's definitely a thing. Yeah. So anyways, the Dark Troopers are the last line of defense for the Empire, and they're basically coming in to get baby Grogu. And and in the meantime, Mando's trying to pull Grogu off the stone, and he's being catapulted back by this energy field that's been created around him as he sits on the seer stone and meditates for like half an hour. Yeah.
As one
The puppet guy for Grogu did not have to do a lot of work in this episode. But I also want to say this episode was directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Mhm.
And apparently he's like the coolest guy ever, because like he was just bringing his guitar out on set and just like he
Nice.
just started playing guitar like in between shots and stuff.
Yeah.
He'd just be like, dude,
And baby Grogu danced to it.
That
There's
could
a
either
video.
be really fun or really annoying, depending on what he's playing and whether people are into it or not.
I think that would be pretty awesome if you ask me. But
Yeah, and there's
but
a
yeah.
video of him playing to like Baby Yoda to Baby Grogu, and Baby Grogu is just like dancing a little bit, like back and forth.
Oh, that's funny.
And I was like, this is so cute. This is ridiculously cute. I
Yeah,
forgive
so-
him for eating those eggs.
So Boba and Fennec managed to basically decimate all these stormtroopers. The Dark Troopers are flying in, and
yeah, I really like those
Mando's
guys.
ship
They
has
reminded
been
me of
destroyed.
Sentinels
Sadly,
from X-Men.
there's there's like an orbital shot from like above the planet from the destroyer from the Empire, and blows up Mando's ship. There's like literally nothing left except for the little ball that Grogu plays with at the end of the shifter at the end of the shifter in the cockpit.
Broke my damn heart. I swear. I was so upset when his ship got destroyed. I was like, his home.
So what do we think of the Dark Troopers, guys? They're basically like Iron Man. That's kind of what
they remind me of Sentinels from X-Men.
Oh, okay, good call.
Yeah.
Good call.
Like like the classic X-Men cartoon, those Sentinels.
Yep. Yep. So they're part biological, it looks like, and they're part. Well, no, actually, I think they're
not biological at all.
We don't find out. Yeah, we don't find out that till later. So basically, they're like robots. They're just basically robots.
But them coming down and swooping, 4 of them swooping up Baby Yoda, that was pretty exciting, that moment. I was like, whoa, okay. I'm interested to see what happens next now.
I was like, put him down.
And I think that was the first time that season 2 made me actually want to watch the next episode right after.
Yeah, and Grogu fell asleep on the stone after he was done. But he got the work
that was
done.
the first time I watched two Mandalorian episodes in a row.
Nice. Nice. But Grogu did get the work done. Whoever he was communicating with got the signal, because it ended on its own, and he just fell over and fell to sleep. And then the Dark Troopers came and picked him up. So at the end of the episode, Boba's like, Boba said earlier that he would trade the armor as a promise, or sorry, if Mando would give him his armor back, that he would vow to protect him and the child. And so at the end, Boba's like, we didn't meet our obligation, so we're with you until we get the child back. Until the child is safe, we're with you. So basically, Mando is teaming up with Fennec Shand and Boba Fett, and they're going to ride on Slave One, which is amazing.
And this team up I like all of these characters.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like it's very RPG-like. Like he's just building up his party. It's like he needs a healer now. He needs this. Like he's just really slowly adding to the ranks. But yeah, I'm with you, Christine. I did like this.
What do you guys think of Tamura Morrison? I thought he was great. Like he's so stoic and just terrifying.
Which character is that again?
Like,
I forgot.
Threatening with everything he says. Like there's no like in between. Like you definitely feel it from him. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, it's made very clear at this point that Boba Fett has always been a clone. Right, to anybody who hasn't seen the prequels, but it's made very clear that he's always been a clone. But yeah. Oh, and then then they did the chain code thing. That was pretty cool. What'd you guys think of that?
I don't remember that.
He brought up like that holographic thing in his arm.
Like to prove who
he's like, this is my
lineage.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The lineage
I thought that was really
of the. Cool. Yeah, I thought that was neat too.
I've already forgotten that, so to me it wasn't a non-issue thing. But
yeah. So moving on, next stop is to go and see Cara Dune in episode 7, and Mando wants Cara Dune to get him a prisoner, and the prisoner is our buddy Miggs Mayfeld, played by Bill Burr. And they go to the prison planet, and Bill Burr is like in his little prison jumpsuit, and one of the droids comes over to him and tells him that he's to go with Marshal Cara Dune. And I didn't even know that this thing was official. Did anybody know that this thing was official now? That Cara was a marshal of what planet is she on? Is she on?
I think we find that out in season 1.
No.
I think
that did not happen in season 1.
So the beginning of season 2,
no.
she
I thought she was
offered something, and then that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we heard
from Mr. Kim
before this episode.
Yeah. So Bill Burr's back in the mix, and they have to break into an Imperial facility so he can use a computer to track down the whereabouts of Moff Gideon. So they hijack a Rhydonium shipment on this planet that they're going to. I think it was what Jeff was a Morag. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Morag. Wait,
Morag.
Is it Morag? Or I thought Morag was.
It's Morak. I thought it ended with
Morak.
Morag
Okay.
sounds
Morak.
like that was in the Avengers.
Morak. Oh, it is in Adventures. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting our franchise planets kind of messed up here. So they want to break in the facility. They want to get to this computer and pull out enough information so they can find Moff Gideon. There's this big thing about Mando removing his helmet. He has to change into like actual Empire clothes. So there's like this real kind of emotional tension about him taking off his Beskar armor and his helmet to like change into this disguise. And he wears the helmet piece the entire time. Moment. While Bill Burr is riding comfortably without a helmet the entire time.
Yeah,
I thought
and
that was
ripping on him
funny.
about the helmet.
I know.
Yeah, but this is basically an incursion mission. Get the information, get out. Boba Fett's gonna lend air support, and Fennec Shand and Cara Dune are gonna cover them with sniper rifles as they make their escape. Things don't go as planned. Bill Burr sees an officer that he used to report under, and there's Miggs Mayfeld. Miggs Mayfeld sees an officer that he used to report to in the ISB, and he gets called in, and there's they have this conversation. They're having lunch together or drink together. They're still playing their roles, and there's this amazing scene between Bill Burr and this guy, because this officer is apparently responsible for like a ton of deaths that could have been avoided.
Yeah.
Like he's one of these irresponsible military men that's just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to sacrifice a couple thousand soldiers. No big deal. They're just cannon fodder anyways. Big deal. Well, Bill Burr or Miggs Mayfield has a huge problem with it. And he does this incredible scene. And honestly, my feeling was like this was one of the best scenes that we've gotten in The Mandalorian, period. Would you guys agree with that?
It was intense.
Yeah,
I like this whole episode, and I did really like that scene as well.
You could see it in his eyes. Like it was really like evident, like as he was doing, and I watched most of the series with my brother. I would like say aloud, I was like, don't do it. Like, don't, like you could see in his eyes, like he just, and it was a strange thing because he kept egging him on. It's like he was trying to get him to prove me wrong. Prove to me that you're not this atrocious, horrible person, And he just kept talking, and it just got worse and worse to the point where I was like, all right, okay, I guess, the punch is like, it's kind of deserved, but it was really good how that scene was kind of played, like the build up.
Yeah, no, the buildup was amazing, and hats off to Bill Burr for his dramatic chops, man. Just, oh my god, I want to see this guy in more stuff. Like I remember he was great in Breaking Bad, but like he's such a good actor. He's such a good actor. I saw him just recently in The King of Staten Island, the new movie with it's not new anymore, but the one with Pete Davidson, and he's great. He's got the worst mustache in the world in this one, but he's great. He does such an amazing job in it. So they get the intel. They have to escape, but before the whole escape aspect of it, Bill Burr shoots this officer right in front of like everybody. And the one thing I loved about this scene was Miggs Mayfield didn't miss a single shot. And he's an Empire guy. He's on the same side as the guy that misses everybody. So basically they're in a firefight with the Empire trying to get out of this building. There's fire support coming from Fennec Shand and from Cara Dune, and Boba Fett's there to pick them up on the roof, and they all bail out, and they let Bill Burr go at the end for helping out, and Bill Burr destroys the entire facility with a sniper rifle as they're flying away by shooting the Rhydonium.
Just for kicks. I do have to say there's two things of this episode, so other than Mayfield's performance. The one thing I love was the mention of Operation Cinder. I feel like it's not mentioned a lot, and the fact that like they brought up Operation Cinder, especially in like live action, because I felt like that should have been in the sequel trilogies or something.
So cool.
I really liked mention of that, and then the whole of like Mando taking his mask off, and what we're really seeing in this season is really his like fraught relationship with this, I guess you could call it like a religion, this thing that he's prescribed to, that this is who he is. And, when push comes to shove, though, and it's someone he loves, like the lengths he's willing to go, and how, we kind of saw that first season a bit where he met that one woman that one episode, and she wanted to take his mask off, and he just kind of like left. But we see his resolve sort of, I don't know, honestly, weakening, but sort of like he's starting to become less rigid with his rules just because of like what's at stake.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I feel like it definitely was a huge struggle. And even that moment where he's trying to look into the machine that's trying to read his eyes or whatever, he's trying to avoid looking at anyone else or talking to anyone else while he has the helmet off.
Yep.
And then we see that eventually he does have to turn around and like respond to the officer, and the officer has to see his face, and he's like so annoyed by that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that they maintained a lot of the old Empire tech too, like the code cylinder and all that. Like they're carrying that over from from other Star Wars canon. I thought that was kind of cool. I really liked the action sequence with the chase too. I thought the action sequence was really well done. Those villagers really wanted those guys dead. Holy shit. That was nuts, man. They had a lot of thermal detonators too. Like,
I did also like when they were being chased by
and it looks like
TIE
they were kind of
fighters.
kamikaze, right, Jeff? Like they were like,
they didn't care. They just wanted to blow it up.
Yeah, they just wanted to blow it up. They didn't care about their own lives. Like they were ready to go down with the Rhydonium. Like, and if you don't know what Rhydonium is, it was highly featured in the Solo movie, which was basically what Han and Chewie and Woody Harrelson's character were hijacking from that refining facility, which basically got stolen at the end. So the strangest thing about this whole episode, though, because it is probably one of my favorite of the season, is the ending. Is like the video message he sends to Moff Gideon. Yeah,
I was like, why are you telling him what you're doing?
Is this a Taken movie? Did Liam Neeson come out of it? I have a set of skills. I will find you.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me, because like they went to all that trouble to find this guy's location, right? They went to all that trouble to find this guy's location, and then they basically tell him,
no element of surprise. They're just like, fuck it, let's just go.
I love it.
And then the whole strategy, or the whole misdirect to get everybody onto the cruiser. Like, you don't think Moff Gideon was looking for that after you sent him a video message saying, "Hey man, I'm coming for you." Like that was kind of, I don't know, but again, that's another thing that kind of lends itself to what I was saying before, is like there's just some lazy shit going on in the world of Star Wars. And to me, that's lazy shit. Like, let's just, like, wasn't anybody in that writer's room just to say, hey, listen, guys, if Mando's going to assault this guy's cruiser in the final episode, how about we don't have him send like a voicemail to this
threatening voicemail
to let him know that he's coming?
Yeah, like I could tell they wanted to get Moff Gideon in the episode somehow. Yeah. It's funny because Rick Fumayuo wrote this episode, and he's written, he's great. He's amazing. All the other stuff he's worked on for this
Dope
series.
is so good. If you haven't seen Dope, please go see Dope. Oh my God, it's so good.
It's really interesting to me that is how they added Moff Gideon in, because it doesn't feel actually lazy. It feels like overindulgent, actually, because you didn't need that scene. You could have had a scene with Moff Gideon and the child, and like something, sort of horrible happening, and it makes like the sort of like you're more anxious to get Mando to like get to Moff Gideon. Like if it was just that, like that would have been fine. But then he was like, it's like, I don't know if you played Persona, but you send like a calling card before you like fight the bad guy. So it's like they sent a calling card and it was like, expect us here at this time.
Saba, after you highlight that, it makes the episode right now 15% less enjoyable for me.
Sorry about
it's
that.
Okay.
I didn't mean to do that, but
the fight scene was pretty cool. So
yeah, the scenes in the those scenes are really cool. Like the action was great. Just one weird little ending.
And the scene with the TIE fighters, I also like that. So
coming into episode 8.
Oh yeah, the TIE fighters were dope. I like that. I like that Mando had to get out of there without his gear. I like that too. Because like the Mandalorians can be so reliant on their equipment. Like that's basically
kind of shows his skill,
they have the equal. His skill, exactly, his raw skill, right? Like those are equalizers almost in every fight that they've ever had. That snare can do some damage. Those whistling birds do a lot of damage. We've seen that he can take out 7 people at once with those whistling birds. So it was really cool to see him kind of do his own thing. You know what I mean? Like, I thought that was a good lead up to what we were gonna come to.
He's to show that he's not just some guy in armor that needs it. He can do anything outside of it too. He's
not Robert Downey Jr. Sorry, RDJ. I don't mean that the way it sounds. I know that sounds like I'm being an asshole about it, but I know you could punch your way out of something if you needed to, if you're out of the armor. But you're still a guy that fights in armor. So, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. Jeff, were you a fan of Bill Burr in this episode?
Yeah, no, he did a really good job. I enjoyed him quite a bit. I thought he was comical. He was very serious, and I enjoyed the scene with him in the cafeteria. That was awesome.
I hope they bring him back. I really want him to get brought back into something.
When he left though, they're like, he died in the explosion. He's like, I'm leaving now. I'm serious.
Yeah, that was funny. I did. That. He's like, so I'm gonna go. You're not gonna come get me, right? And
he just wasn't sure.
And then before they like waved him off.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So our little band of cohorts have the intel that they need. They know where Moff Gideon is. The final episode starts off with Boba. Is he in space? No, he's not in space yet, right?
At the end of that episode, is he in space?
Doesn't the whole episode revolve around on Gideon's ship?
Wait, does Mando's ship get destroyed in episode 7?
Mando's ship gets destroyed when they take Grogu.
Mando's ship is done. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the beginning of episode 8, they get the help of Bo-Katan and Costa too, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Where's the part where we get... Okay, so this is going to sound so trivial, but like this was such a cool moment for me, and maybe for some of you guys too. Seeing inside the Slave One as it was like rotating, that was fucking cool as shit. And seeing how big the ship is, like it's got its own interior and like its own little like holographic
it looks
table,
so much
like
bigger than it does on the inside than it does the outside.
Totally.
I was very confused.
Totally.
I'm like,
a lot
is this a wizard tent? What is going on?
Totally. I was like, where are they putting all this stuff? Like, because like you look at the design of the ship and you're like, where are they putting all this stuff?
I feel like it fits like one person.
Yeah. Oh shit, wait. One more note for episode 6. I have to, or sorry, episode 7. I have to say this. Boba Fett drops the sonic depth charge on those 2 TIE fighters as he's rescuing Migs and Mando. And that is my favorite Star Wars weapon of all time. When Jango Fett uses that in the asteroid field against Obi-Wan Kenobi, I was like, what the fuck is that? That thing is so fucking cool. And it makes such a cool sound. I love that. Sorry. Okay, so back to the finale. So yes, they've gone to meet Bo-Katan and Koska Reeves, and there's this exchange and this agreement that. Oh, did you guys catch the whole part about Mando basically almost agreeing that once everything is over, he's going to help Bo-Katan take back Mandalore or fix Mandalore or whatever?
Was it implicitly implied, or he was like, I'm just like, I'll help you get the, like, I think he wasn't going to stand in the way. I didn't think he was going to like join rank with them.
I think he's joining rank with them. I think that's kind of like where the story is leading now, especially since
everything that happened at the end of the season. I feel like this is the next step for him.
Yeah.
It sounds
like like he's gonna go into the other order of Mandalorians where he doesn't have to wear a helmet the whole time.
Possibly. Sabo, go ahead. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was just saying that I do think like by the end of the episode, that's where he's leading because of events we'll talk about. Yeah. But I don't think that's where he was right at the beginning of the episode. I think at the beginning he was like, let's get Grogu, because like I don't think he was gonna like bring Grogu along to like take back Mandalore. So he definitely ended up getting there by the end of the season. I completely agree, Jeff. I think the next season is going to be so much more about that, and we'll get into it when we start talking more about this episode. But
can we all agree that if Grogu wasn't a baby, there would be a lot less people willing to help?
Probably.
Yes.
Babies are cute. Okay.
What do you want me to say? I'm saying there would be a lot less people to help. Like,
I mean, it's a child. I think because it's a child.
I think that's a part of it. Yeah. I think that's a part of it. But I also think that there's this comradeship between the Mandalorians for sure. They're a very loyal people, from what I've seen. Unless you're a shitty Mandalorian like Pre Vizsla or or the other guys that have done some shady shit as Mandalorians. But, you know, Bo-Katan strikes me as somebody who's loyal. She may be a little bit calculating. She's definitely calculating, actually. But she definitely strikes me as someone who's loyal. So they agree to work together to get Grogu back. And there's something in it for Bo-Katan, though, right? She's going to get Moff Gideon, and she's going to get the Darksaber back. That's what she wants. She wants the Darksaber. And this only compounds issues as this episode goes along, by the way. It's not just...
Apparently she needs it.
Yeah, I was
going
going
to
say, she implies, like,
right?
I'm going to be the one to take on Moff Gideon. Like, leave him to me.
But she never makes that abundantly clear. That's the problem. She never made it clear to the Mandalorian that, hey, listen, like, if you get into a tussle with this guy, I need to be the one to disarm you.
Like, give me a call.
Yeah.
Like, send me over. Be like, wait 1 second.
Yeah. So they come up with this really cool plan where they're going to hijack Tidarian shuttle, the Imperial shuttle, and they more or less shoot out its stabilizer or whatever. Boba's chasing it down in the Slave One. They shoot out its stabilizer. The whole thing goes wonky. They're able to board, and the doctor, Dr. Pershing, is on board, played by Obai Ati. I think that's his name. He's also in, or Odab Ati, I think. He's also in American Gods, and he's pretty amazing in American Gods, to be honest. So they board the ship, and the guy flying the shuttle is the big bad from the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
What?
And I don't think anybody, like, I honestly, I don't think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had a huge audience this last season, but it was the best season. It was the time, like, it was actually about time travel. Funny enough, with Endgame being the end thing for phase 3. But yeah, they board the shuttle and they take it over, and then Bo-Katan is going to pilot the shuttle and pretend she's being chased by the Slave One, and to get them to drop their shields and let them on board and blah, 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 blah. And there's these TIE fighters coming out, but they all eventually get on. But, like, Bo-Katan almost kills them all, though. You guys realize that, right?
Oh, yeah, because it was a very harsh crash landing. I mean, anything went wrong, would have blown up the whole ship and killed everybody.
Yeah, but, like, they still had the ability to fly the ship. The ship wasn't hit in a way that I don't think that they couldn't, like, I don't know. I just think it was bad flying by Bo-Katan. That was my takeaway. I don't know. Which is ironic because she was the best pilot in the Colonial Fleet on Battlestar Galactica. So, but that's an insight on Katie Sackhoff, guys. Not Bo-Katan. So they basically crash land. It's Koska Reeves, Bo-Katan. So they're going to split into parties. It's going to be Fennec Shand, Koska Reeves, Bo-Katan, and Cara Dune. And we got our own little, like, Star Wars, like, Avengers girl power moment coming up. And they basically wipe the floor with the stormtroopers that are coming to meet them on
but the moment also made sense.
And
it wasn't
one of the
like
coolest scenes is Bo-Katan and, like, Koska Reeves. I think they're, like, hiding under one of those, like, bridges, and they wait until the stormtroopers they have Fennec Shand and they have the drop on Fennec Shand and Cara Dune, and they come up from the sides and just blast them all out, like, just take them all down. Pretty cool scene. They make their way to the bridge, and then we see Mando. He's kind of on his own, and he's headed towards the detention area to try and find Grogu. And he gets to Grogu. What's his face is waiting? Moff Gideon. He's got the Darksaber hovering over his head, and there's this, like, back and forth, and Moff Gideon basically agrees to give him Grogu back if he's willing to agree to leave the ship and just go on his way. And as Mando's turning his back to Moff Gideon ignites the Darksaber and tries to kill him.
That was such a cheap move. I was like, what? You literally just said you were not going to do that. And my brother was like, why would you believe that? I was like, I totally believed him. I was like, what a douche. You 100%
would have been tricked.
I know, I 100% would have been tricked. I would have been like, oh, that's so nice of you. Oh, but one thing you didn't mention, Frank, that before they met up with Moff Gideon, or before he met up, Mandalorian found like the Dark Troopers, and he barely defeated like
Oh,
one
right.
of them, and then
Yeah.
you know, ejected the rest into space. But like
Yes.
he barely,
his face
barely
was a punching
defeated that
bag
one.
or helmet.
Yes, his helmet. Yeah. Just and those punches were so robotic. They're just like almost like mechanic. Like
You know what
totally
it
mechanical
reminded me of?
punches.
It reminded me of the Hulkbuster versus Hulk. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep.
Yes. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep.
Or Rocco's
yeah,
Soft
yeah,
and
yeah.
Robots.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
what it reminded me of.
essentially, yeah,
Yeah,
they
that
were. It was pretty intense.
Yeah, that was hilarious. So yeah, no, he ejects the Dark Troopers into space, and then he heads over to the detention area. So we're gonna pick up in the detention area. So he tries to kill Mando, but because Mando has the Beskar spear on his back, the Beskar spear deflects the blade of the Darksaber, and the fight begins. And basically Mando's defending himself the same way he defended himself against Ahsoka Tano, which is with his Beskar. So he's using his arms, he's using his legs, he's using everything he's got to kind of like gain an upper hand on Moff Gideon. And Moff Gideon's got him he backed into a corner for a little while. And he comes back at him. He pulls out the Beskar spear. We see some kind of like, some sort of martial art with the spear. Not a lot of it. It kind of seems like his defense with the spear was kind of crude, very like, rudimentary, just like stabbing and slashing. But there's a couple of decent moves in there. And they end up fighting to a point where he disarms Moff Gideon and he takes him to the bridge, and that's where everything kind of starts to get really interesting. So once Moff Gideon is on the bridge, there's this weird tension because Bo-Katan sees that Moff Gideon has been defeated and Mando is holding the Darksaber. And there's this big exchange about Moff Gideon's like, somebody else want to pick this up? Because it's like, it's kind of convoluted.
He says that like you have to be powerful, like you have to defeat the person, and it only sticks with the person, like that is defeated or something.
Well, it's like I think this might be more of a like one of those oath like man of her word,
Cultural.
whatever. Yeah, it's like she
Take
can't
it from him. She has to win it through combat.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
I've seen in other sort of media, like this concept. It's not, and out there for that, and there is a creed, especially with the Mandalorians, that they do follow. So,
But I think I remember
it
one
does
of
make
the
sense, and it
characters
obviously
also
makes sense
saying,
for what they obviously want season 3 to be about.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense
I
for
think
that.
I
I feel
remember
like-
one of the characters
but,
also saying like it doesn't matter what actually happens as long as it looks like she.
But I
won
feel
it
like
at the
him
end.
conceding and giving it would count too. I don't know. To me, that at least
I
if
don't
they were to
know.
challenge each other and
Yeah.
you're just like, I concede here. What's the difference?
Yeah, but Mando, he tries to turn it over to her a couple times. He even says, I yield, because Moff Gideon says, it has to be taken from the person in battle. And Mando's like, I yield. And she's like, I can't take it. I can't take it. I can't take it. So there's this huge thing now between Bo-Katan and Mando about this Darksaber. But that's not their biggest problem, because the Dark Troopers have managed to get back on board the ship because they're fucking robots and they're not going to die in space. And they have technology to fly back to the ship. So they're basically on their way in, and they're going to try and knock down the door. And we're right at the point where they're about to bust through the door and everybody in the room is going to die. And Moff Gideon's threatening everybody, and he thinks that he's going to win out on this thing. And then we see a lone X-Wing coming around the front of the ship, right in front of the cockpit window. And everybody's like, who the fuck is that?
It's like, we all know what that
Well, Cara Dune cracks a joke like, "Oh yay, one X-wing."
Yeah, one
It's
X-Wing.
really funny because how you said lone X-Wing, I was like, who could that be? I was like, it's not who you think. And my brother kept saying, it's a lone X-Wing sub. It's a lone X-Wing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, what's happening?
It's Kim
Yeah.
Convenience come to save the
There's a big, with a cockpit full of fan service. Yep. So
Yeah, basically.
the X-Wing lands, and we cut to these surveillance, this point of
This
view.
was fan servicey.
Sorry.
This was very
Oh my
fan
God, we're gonna-
servicey.
don't
Okay,
worry.
we're gonna get
Surveillance
into it because I
footage,
have
the slow lead up.
Yeah, no, this was insane. So the point of view shifts to the surveillance cameras in the ship. By the way, they're black and white, and we're like in space with incredible technology, but we have black
but that's
and white
Star
cameras.
Wars as a whole. It gets me so mad from
It's-
their technology.
Yes.
I'm like, you guys don't have like, Zoom, like, are you kidding me? Anyway,
Like these surveillance things should be like holographic. Like you should.
I mean,
be
even
able to,
their
like,
radar systems when they're like flying.
oh
I'm just
word,
like,
totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
anyway,
Yes.
that's just another gripe. That's just a
That's so
weird gripe
true.
that I have with
So archaic. So archaic. So we switch to this point of view to the surveillance system, and there's this black hooded figure moving through the halls, destroying the dark troopers, using the force. We see a lightsaber. It's green. The figure's dressed all in black, which I thought was a little out of hand at this point, but that's just me. He runs through the dark troopers like they're butter. They pose no opposition to him at all. He gets to the front of the door, or he gets to the door of the bridge, and he basically again destroys the troopers that are there. And then Mando's like, open the door. Open the door. In the meantime, Grogu has moved over to the screen too, and he's like touching the screen, watching this Jedi slice his way through the dark troopers. So obviously there's some connection
also
here.
Moff Gideon
This is probably the guy.
picks up a blaster and messes up Mando and tries
Yeah.
to kill Grogu during all this too.
Well, first he tries to kill Bo-Katan, but the best.
Oh, that was Bo-Katan, yeah, not Mando, yeah.
And then Mando, and he tries to kill Grogu, and then Mando
But, yeah.
dives in front and saves Grogu. Yeah. But then the door opens, in walks this hooded figure. He removes his hood, and it's a fucking de-aged Luke Skywalker. And
I want to
Yeah,
give
and
props
th-
to
this
this
is
team
pretty crazy.
for not getting the spoiler out, because do you know how hard it is to not have things spoiled even a little bit, especially something as big as this. So whoever was like working on that episode, good job for like keeping it under wraps. You know what I mean? Because it's really hard like to
Well,
not.
they also threw
'cause
everybody
they're-
off by saying they were casting someone else to play Luke Skywalker, a younger version.
Yeah,
at
and
some
they
point. I read
did,
that
so-
a few days before the episode that there was.
So it's English actor Max Lloyd Jones.
Yeah.
And then it's Mark Hamill's voice and Mark
Yeah.
Hamill's face
Yeah.
on top of it.
Yeah.
So it's funny, Christina, you actually, so I don't know if you guys remember this, Frank, but when we were doing the halfway, the last episode when we did like half season review and we didn't know who the Jedi was going to be, and you were like, it's Ahsoka Tano, and Christina actually at one point was like, it could be Luke, like randomly said that, and you were like, you think it's going to be Luke? And you know what, Christina? You're right.
There we
Ends up
go.
being Luke, which is just, I remember that. I specifically...
I was like, there has to be other Jedis alive. And then we were kind of naming like, all
Well,
the
that's what we're
different
going to get
Jedis.
into
Like,
because
yeah.
this is why it's fan service. Okay, let me throw this idea or this notion at you guys. So the reason I think it's fan service is because in this context of where we are in the Star Wars galaxy, or the Star Wars universe or whatever, Luke is the least trained, the least experienced, and the most underpowered Jedi out of all the Jedi available right now.
I don't know. He didn't
Okay,
look
so
very
who else would it be?
underpowered when he came on that ship.
Okay, this is... Yeah.
Cal
Okay. This is
Kestis?
what I'm going to say in terms of.
But he
just-
learns fast, right?
Yeah, in terms of everything that's going on. So we know from the sequel trilogies that Luke set up sort of a training, like a Padawan, whatever. We know he's in the process of doing that.
Yep.
I think anyone else coming to collect him would probably actually maybe not make as much sense, because we know that is what Luke is currently doing, that he's collecting Padawans, that he was starting this whole Jedi thing again. So when he gets the signal or when he sees that, he's looking for other young Jedi to
That's
train.
a fair argument. Okay. That's a fair argument.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a
There
fair
we go.
argument. But at the same time, he is the most inexperienced Jedi. And honestly, I've always said this, okay? The problem with the canonization of Skywalker is that Luke was a master by default because there's nobody else to call master. There's nobody else to even that knows the teachings. He's the one guy, right? So by default, he becomes the strongest Jedi in the universe, right? But now that we've introduced Ahsoka, we've introduced Ezra Bridger, we've introduced Cal Kestis. We don't know if Mace Windu is dead.
No, he's dead.
We don't know that.
You're right. Actually, no one dies in Star Wars.
But
It's like a soap
Ahsoka
opera.
told him to keep looking for other Jedi. Ahsoka was like, I'm not going to do it. So
Right.
she turned down this like mission.
Right, but I'm not talking about Ahsoka, okay?
And Ezra's is with space whales.
Right. Okay, fair. But Dave Filoni has already teased that Ezra could possibly be back. So that's a problem. Okay? So when it comes to like experience and when it comes to talent and when it comes to mastery of the Force, okay? Ezra Bridger would wipe the floor with Luke Skywalker. Ahsoka Tano would wipe the floor with Luke Skywalker. Cal Kestis, I'm not 100% sure on. But Ezra Bridger and Ahsoka Tano would destroy Luke Skywalker.
But it makes no sense.
I also don't think the situation calls for the strongest Jedi either.
I think it
But
does.
I think this
that's true because Luke
I don't
is
think it
also
does.
more
It's like
attuned
some
to the
little-
Force. I feel like his Force powers is stronger just because he's less skilled in fighting, but he's more attuned with the Force, which makes him a master. I don't think he would get wiped by any of them, and especially since like what we've watched in The
I don't know,
Mandalorian,
man.
I don't think Luke would have lost to the Ahsoka Tano we watched.
In what?
Yeah.
The Mandalorian? Dude, I don't know. See, okay. I don't think it's fair to assess Ahsoka's skill level based on what we saw in that episode. And the reason I say that is because Rosario Dawson kind of reminded me, like her physical prowess in that episode, it kind of reminded me of the same way we saw Finn Jones when he did the first couple episodes of Iron Fist. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, she was really slow. She looked very clunky. And I'm sure with training and I'm sure with practice, she's going to get better. But she looked like she was moving at the same speed Finn Jones was moving at as Iron Fist, right? So I really feel like you can't measure Ahsoka's talent level by Rosario Dawson's performance. I think Ahsoka Tano is one of the most formidable Jedis ever. Not only did she master the double blade, but she actually has a physical, biological advantage over other combatants because of her Montrals. Her Montrals actually have like extra sensory that help her balance and tumble, much better than like say a human. Like she has a biological advantage against an opponent. Her athleticism and her agility are at another level. So not only does she have the Force to enhance those abilities, but she also has them without the Force. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So again, I don't think Luke Skywalker would stand a chance against Ahsoka.
Okay, so going back to whether it makes sense if whether he could stand a chance or not against her, to whether it makes sense for her showing up versus anyone else, I still think it makes the most sense for Luke. First of all, if Ezra showed up, half the audience would have been like, "What?" I don't think you'd be happy either because that's not what his storyline is in terms of what's going on. And also, Luke was trained with Yoda, but he also trained with like Force Ghost Obi-Wan, so he has had like a fair amount of training, right? From what I understand.
Know, man. It's really tough. Like okay, the problem with what Disney has done over like since they took over the franchise is they killed off Star Wars Legends, right? They killed it. They're like, this is no longer canon anymore. It's done, right? All these stories you've heard about Luke Skywalker, they're done. They've never happened, right? So if Legends was still intact and this happened, then I'd be like, okay, this makes sense. Because like in Legends, Luke was pulling down Star Destroyers with the Force out of space. Like he would just reach up and pull fucking Star Destroyers out of the atmosphere. That's one powerful motherfucker, right? And I like Luke, but he's been too canonized. Like he's like the way that fans worship Luke is weird because he's never even won a lightsaber battle.
I mean, here's the thing: Luke represents hope.
Vader.
Like he beat.
No, he didn't.
Well, like here, there. This is. this is my thing with Luke, and this is my thing with Star Wars. And Luke was a new hope, and Luke represents hope. And I think seeing Luke gives that sign of that, you know, and that's what, you know, essentially what Grogu got. And same with Mando was this hope, you know, it is in tune with what his character is. And actually something Mark Hamill said himself, that he was really happy working with the director here, and saying that, you know, it was like this, you know, how he felt like Luke could have or should have been portrayed. And I know you have your own theories on like that, because you're a big fan of The Last Jedi, but I think there's a lot of fans who were really happy with this portrayal or what we saw here. And it wasn't, I mean, yeah, it's definitely, you can say it's fan service. I mean, a lot of Star Wars is, but I think him showing up in this episode is the only Jedi that would really make sense for what we know he's doing in terms of the sequel trilogy. You know, he is building up the Jedis again. He's making this new order of Jedi. He's training these younglings. So obviously it would make sense that he's the one to answer that call.
Okay. That's definitely a fair argument, like I said. But as far as what Mark Hamill said, okay, listen, there's one thing I'm starting to realize about Mark Hamill. Okay. He's a great guy. He's very loquacious. And I love him as a person. I think he's got a giant heart. But he's very quick to really be critical if it's something that doesn't help his character's image. Like, it may make sense for the story, but if it doesn't help the character get to the place where Mark thinks the character should be, even though Mark's not the writer, then Mark is very critical of it, right? Like he was with The Last Jedi. I'm sorry, but the way that The Last Jedi was written, J.J. Abrams put Mark Hamill and Luke Skywalker on that island, right? And somebody in a Facebook comment the other day, somebody commented, I made this exact same point, and somebody said back to me, well, why didn't he just jump in his X-Wing and fly back like they did with Rey and thing? And I'm like, well, because nobody who saw Rey fly in that X-Wing thought that was a good idea, because that fucking X-Wing has been waterlogged for the last like 35 years, right? Like, Christina, you made that joke about needing a giant bag of rice to dry that thing out before she flew it, right? So that didn't make any sense. And Mark has always been critical of his portrayal in The Last Jedi, but I think that his portrayal in The Last Jedi was the most accurate portrayal of the character based on the events that took place before and during his childhood or during his adolescence, like around like when he was a teenager, like when we first meet him. I think that those events make complete sense. And I also think that given, as I was saying, I think that the portrayal of that character just is logically where that character would end up if you look at the events of if you look at the things that happened to him and the events of that story. I think that's exactly where he ends up, especially if you put him on a fucking island, right? It's one thing if he isolates himself in Coruscant and, he decides to like still see his friends and see his family and, still be with people, but he isolates himself. That's what happens to human beings when you isolate them. Look at that movie Castaway. Tom Hanks was talking to a fucking volleyball, right? So
it's
why
also
do
different
we
if you isolate yourself by choice or if it's involuntary.
It doesn't matter.
Right?
Insanity doesn't take a break when you do it voluntarily.
All right. This is now a Last Jedi conversation, which could go a whole different direction.
Yeah,
we definitely have had a ton of these.
Yeah, no, we still need to do an episode on that. Okay, so let's get back to Mando. So one of the big problems, like probably the biggest problem I had with the finale was Mando wasn't the hero of his own story. That bothered me. You're going to write the series for this character and then you're going to have Luke Skywalker come in and save him. Why couldn't he be the guy with the victory at the end of the day? Right? Why did you need an iconic canon character to play that role? One, because of fan service, and that's the only explanation you can give me. He should have been able to beat the bad guys and to And honestly, the Jedi story should have continued. Like it shouldn't have ended with Jedi coming to him. It should have been a search. It should have been something of some spiritual significance. Like, we're talking about fucking Star Wars here, people, right? And mythology and spirituality are very big themes in this universe, and we really haven't got to see a lot of that in The Mandalorian. And I want to see more of it.
I think we've seen a bit of it. It was in terms of, you know, his personal connection with Mandalore and his like sort of troop that he's part of. But I guess I just wanted to move away from like the Jedi. And I'm not saying that Grogu was a handicap, but it was a little bit of...
Oh, it's a crutch.
Yeah, for him to go on what he does. I will say I teared up when he was like leaving. I was like,
oh yeah, that bothered me too. But
I was like, he's going. But it does make sense for where they're taking the show.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you guys feel about Mando not being the hero in his own story?
I didn't honestly think about it until just now.
Well, his story's not done yet.
I didn't think it.
I think that makes sense because he's not the strongest being around. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but we're talking about Moff Gideon and a bunch of Dark Troopers. Like, they could have easily come up with some sort of techno workaround to get rid of the Dark Troopers again. It could have been something along those lines, right? It could have been like some technical
then
MacGyver
I feel like
crap.
they would have had a plan beforehand or some hint towards it, how they would have dealt with it. They had no plan to deal with the Dark Troopers other than space lock them.
Yeah, hope for the best.
And especially with his fight against one of them, I'm like, there's no way he's beaten all of them. It's over. Like, there's no way coming out of that.
No,
I don't think there's anything wrong with teamwork. It doesn't bother me when characters have to like team up to win a battle or something.
And mind you, I will have to say with Mando is that he's usually the hero of most episodes, and like this guy does like he does get shot because he has Beskar, but like also a lot of shots miss him too. And I'm like, these people are so lucky. You know that scene with Mayfield and him like leaving through the windows and like I'm like, how are they not dead? But so
I honestly really enjoyed that Luke came back and that there was a Jedi and there's still Jedi, and I can't wait to see what happens next with that. Like, I want to see. It's cool. It's cool that the Jedi are part of it. Like, they're around. We know they're around, so it was great to see them like interact with the characters in the show.
Also, I don't feel like it's the last of Grogu we'll see, and that's just like my.
I don't think so either.
So, like, are we supposed to assume that Luke takes him to his training area and then raises Grogu there? Yep. And then Kylo Ren kills him?
I'm sure they'll tell us.
So this is the thing. I got crazy over this. I was like, Kylo Ren will not be killing Grogu. And somebody did the math for it. And I think that by that point that Grogu might not even be at that. Because if you do the math, it's that event is still about like 15 to like 18 years off.
So like 1 year in child time for that species.
Okay, you know what? Jeff, he's fine.
And actually, Mando literally says, we will see each other again. He says that.
Yeah, I mean,
when he takes his mask off, guys, again.
He hopes they'll see each other again.
Yeah, he says it, though.
He
vocalizes
okay,
it.
so let's forget about the whole thing, him not being a hero of his own story. But at the end, when the victory comes, he's lying on the ground. Like, he
that doesn't bother me at all.
That bothers me a lot.
I had no issues with that.
That bothers me a lot. Like,
honestly, like the emotional payoff for this episode, like really, like his emotional payoff, like the sort of growth that he'd seen, like to me, that was so much to me. Like that, it was what really got me emotional when like Grogu like touches his face. You know, it's just, and he looks at him and he's like, oh, so this is not as scary as I thought, or whatever he's thinking in his mind. I don't know, that more like touched me than anything in the episode. I mean, I really like some of the fight scenes with Moff Gideon and stuff, and that's like more the vibe I got. Like that's the takeaway I got, was just this emotional growth that we see.
And to me, that's also very Star Wars, to be like, oh shit, our heroes are gonna lose, and then all of a sudden they get saved by somebody else who comes in at the last second. That feels like very Star Wars.
Okay, well, listen, before we go, let's talk about just real quick, just to wrap up, I want to talk about the fire squad of Casca Reeves, Bo-Katan, Fennec Shand, and Cara Dune. I don't want to give anybody the impression I was trying to minimize it by saying like the Avengers, like it was our Star Wars Avengers girl power moment. I thought that scene was done really, really well, and I want to acknowledge that the that the fight choreography was incredible. The acting was incredible by all three women, and the chemistry was incredible. The way that they worked together and the way that they were like, kind of teaming up, co-oping that battle. I don't know. And like, I really didn't get any feedback from you guys on that scene. What did you guys think of that whole sequence?
So it felt natural and it made sense with the story. So I'll just say that it didn't feel forced.
It didn't feel forced. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
That's pretty much all. It wasn't like a moment to me though. I didn't like stop.
Yeah, it didn't stand out as its own like presented moment. I felt like part of the natural course of the show. So it felt really cool, felt natural. I loved how they all had each other's backs and like nothing forced about it. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, Avengers, take a note, because that's how you do things. You don't do it like, all the single ladies, and get everybody to like stand together and then go fight somebody. That's not how it works. But yeah, no, I really liked this scene. I really did. And I'm impressed with how far Gina Carano's come as an actress. She's really finding her stride, especially what that piece of shit was, or that the pilot was saying to her about Alderaan on the the shuttle when she killed the guy that was holding the doctor hostage.
Yeah,
you guys caught that?
Yeah, what a low blow. I was like, what a low blow. Like that, like people are the worst.
Yeah,
in terms of like bringing that up and knowing that she's from there. But yeah, I would agree as well. Her range has definitely increased in terms of like what she's like for the show. So yeah, she's definitely a great character.
Yeah, she's come far from Deadpool. Like Deadpool, she was wooden as shit, but she's doing great. She's doing a really good job. But also Katie Sackhoff has been fantastic as well. I'm really happy with her portrayal of Bo-Katan. I don't know why other people haven't been so psyched about her. I don't get it. I think she's an incredible actress. And she's matching Bo-Katan's temperament like frame for frame in the animated series.
I think just for people who aren't like familiar with that character,
loquacious, overly expressive person.
I think we'll start seeing a lot more of her in the next season, and I think we'll start seeing that hype. Like for sure she's going to be a regular fixture moving forward. So I do think that her character and probably Costco Reeves as well, it will definitely be getting more hype in terms of the season 3. And then I think Fennec will probably be getting more hype as the Boba Fett show kicks off too.
Yeah, did we see that last end credits scene? That was pretty good.
I like almost missed that.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so Fennec and Boba Fett like take over a throne basically.
Yeah.
That's not just a throne. That's
so explain. I'm not sure what the significance is here.
Okay,
I know it's significant.
Yeah, that was Jabba's palace. So basically, what happened is Jabba's dead because Leia killed him, right? And then Bib Fortuna took over
and ate a lot.
Bib Fortuna got killed by
Bib
Boba
Fortuna
Fett.
Also got real fat.
Yep. Bib Fortuna did get fat. Well, that's what happens when you sit on the throne and you have dancing Twi'lek slave.
Please don't tell me Boba Fett's going to become fat.
I don't think. Well, he's kind of thick already, don't you think? You saw him from the profile.
No, well, the behind the scenes for the Bib Fortuna thing with him, like from the reason they did that was that's what they were showing. Yeah, Frank, what you said, the throne, like it's gluttonous almost when you're on there, right? There's never enough. So and it's the same actor, right, that plays Bib Fortuna in the prequels.
I think so.
Is playing it in this series. So
yeah, the sound guy.
Even Fennec is like leaning on the arm, drinking some like blue liquid, which I assume is their version of alcohol.
Yep.
I love it was just like Kool-Aid.
But basically, I think
it's just some really good water.
I think what this series is going to be, this book of Boba Fett, is basically Boba Fett taking over the crime families of Tatooine. That
would be cool.
That's what I'm thinking.
And not just Tatooine, but the Outer Rim. I mean, isn't that sort of like, Jabba the Hutt? Like that is the connection to a lot of like the stuff that's going on other planets. Yeah.
Well, the problem is there's more Hutts, right? There's Hutts all over the place. So it'll definitely be like one of these Game of Thrones, like, power struggle, power dynamic kind of things, which I think could be really cool. And apparently, like Saba was saying, Ahsoka is going to bleed over into Boba's show. Boba's going to bleed over into Ahsoka's show. Mando's going to bleed over into everybody's show.
But at least they're setting up like enough tension for that to happen.
Yeah.
They're setting it up that it's going to be interesting.
They're definitely going to try to do like an Avengers sort of like triple crossover.
Well, that's what everybody's saying. Everybody's saying that Disney is going to take the Marvel model and they're going to try and apply it to their franchise. That's what everybody's speculating, that's what's going to happen.
It makes sense in this context with everything being streamed on their service. Like that makes sense for them to do. So people are constantly having something to watch or catch up.
Yo,
on.
Frank, did you know the person that acted as Bib Fortuna is the voice actor for General Grievous? Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yep.
Oh, I had no idea.
I can't remember his name, but he's like this. He's one of the sound guys. Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Matthew Wood.
I remember he's one of the sound guys.
Yep.
Matthew Wood. That's it. Well, I'd like to pour one out for the Razor Crest. I'm gonna miss the Razor Crest. I thought it was a great ship. I hope this leads to a new ship for Mando. I really don't care.
He's
if
gonna need a ship.
This is kind of an opportunity to kind of upgrade, I think. I don't know if you guys saw it, but when they were landed, when the Slave One was landed, Bo-Katan ship is basically the standard Mandalorian like starfighter. They use that in the Clone Wars. It's a pretty cool ship, so it'd be cool if Mando maybe got one of those or something. I don't know, but we'll I guess we'll see. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Actually, before I do that, sorry, 3, 2. So before we wrap up, ladies, Jeff, any final thoughts on Mando season 2?
Definitely started slow, ended strong for me. All around pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, I think this is one of the times where the second season of a show is beating the first season.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I
agree.
This was probably 60% better than the first season, if you ask me. And keep in mind, there's a lot of shit I did not like in season 2. Like, well,
we could tell. We could tell.
Yeah, but like, I still enjoyed it. I just think there was a lot of missteps with a lot of the decisions that were made for the story and for some of the characters, but that's just me. Anyways, Saba, what'd you think? Happy?
No, yeah, I would say, I definitely enjoyed it more than season 1, only because season 1 had a lot of those like one-off episodes where this one I felt like they were following a through line, which, so, kind of like Christina said, made you excited to watch the next ones. And I really do think like after, episode 5, the Jedi, like all the episodes after that, like really just all started to pick up. Like I think the last 3 episodes were pretty solid. So yeah, definitely enjoyed
Christina,
it.
your final thoughts?
So I definitely did like season 2 better. I think that we got to revisit some of the characters that we got introduced to in season 1. We got some new characters, but not too many new characters. Then we got reintroduced to familiar characters from other Star Wars properties.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was part of what made it enjoyable. They were able to tell stories using characters we had already met before, and maybe fill out storylines more that they kind of started in season 1.
Yeah.
And I think they set up the spin-offs really well. So
cool.
I'm interested to continue watching some more of those shows.
Well, it's apparent the budget was bigger. The action set pieces have been incredible, huge. And like I said in our first mid-season breakdown, it was mid-season. Sorry. 3, 2. Like I said in our first mid-season breakdown, it really feels like the world has been zoomed out and we can see much more of the broader world of Star Wars. And the cast additions have definitely lended a lot of, new story opportunities and new character opportunities and new dynamics that are very exciting. And it feels like we weren't as reliant on the Western themes this season, which I think is good. The only really kind of callbacks I saw to Kurosawa or Westerns was the Jedi, which was really, really heavily Kurosawa.
And the first episode.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Cobb Vanth. Right. Cobb Vanth. But again, this has been more driven by space and technology and the conflict between Mando and his motivations and the Empire and their desire to stick around. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you could take the time, head over to Podchaser, Apple Podcast, or Stitcher and drop us a review. That would be great. What would be even better is if you could tell your friends about our show. Sharing is caring. We're going to sign off here. I'm Frank McGuire.
I'm Christina Dudumas.
I'm Saba Mir.
And I'm Jeff Mack.
Boom. Peace.